Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's Medicaid Managed Care Billing panel. We're excited to have you as well as our various panelists on today's call. Before we get started, we're going to just run through a few quick logistics. We do encourage you to chat in questions throughout the presentation. We will be devoting a large amount of time towards the second half of the presentation for your questions, so please send them into the chat. Please be sure to send them into all panelists so that we can all see them. If you don't see the chat, if you hover over the toolbar, you should see a word thought bubble. If you click that, then you can send them into the chat. We also, as you can see, have our panelists on camera with us today. And you can manipulate the way that you see the people on camera if you hover towards the top of your screen, and you'll see layout. And you can change it to have a grid view or one by one based on the speaker. We encourage people to put the grid view up, especially once we get past the slide part of the presentation, so that way you can see all the faces and this feels a little bit more like an in-person panel. All right. I'm just going to go through the agenda for today. We are going to start by quickly going through a few of our tools that can help you with billing and revenue cycle management. But then, as I said, we're going to devote the majority of this webinar to our plan panel. They're going to each start with a brief introduction to some of the general processes for billing for their plan or organization. And then we're going to go through some common questions. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So during the Q&A, we're going to start with some of the questions that you all submitted via the survey when you registered, and then we're going to turn to any of the questions that you guys chat in. So we just want to encourage everyone to chat in questions. When you are chatting in your questions, please be sure to say what program it refers to. That way the plan panelists can answer as accurately as possible. And then in the end, we'll also be showing the plan contact information on the screen. So if you have a super nuanced question, you can follow up with the plan representative as appropriate. Okay. I also just want to say that we are recording this, and the slides on the recording will be posted to our website, ctechny.org, after the last of these events, so next week. All right, so just turning to our tools, we just want to remind everyone of the 3 tools that we released in the summer. So we worked with the Medicaid Managed Care Plans to create these tools. You can find them on our tools page. You'll also be able to find them via the links in this PowerPoint once you see it. But this is the first one, the top denial reasons. So this goes through some top denial reasons, the code, and what that code means. And then it also gives advice for how to resolve that and prevent it from happening in future, including the Medicaid Managed Care Plan nuances in the far right column. We also have our revenue cycle management best practices tool, which lists sort of the stages of the process, the elements you need to think about, the best practices to put in place, as well as fields on the billing claim form or denial codes that you could get as a result of not completing these best practices. We have that available, and we also have our top best practices for billing and RCM with Medicaid Managed Care Plans. So this is a one-pager with some tips to remember and keep in mind as you are billing Medicaid Managed Care Plans. So we have these 3 tools. Again, we released them in the summer. They're available on our website. You can also find them via this presentation. And these are meant to work in tandem and also to complement our billing tool that we already have, which is the UB04 interactive claims form, as well as the Managed Care Plan Matrix, which has contact information for various departments of all of the Medicaid Managed Care Plans. Okay, and so now I'm excited to announce that we have a great panel for you today. We have representatives from CDPHP, Excellus, Fidelis, and United. And with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christopher from CDPHP, who's going to present. Christopher?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christopher Charette. I'm a manager in the Provider Relations Department at Capital District Physicians Health Plan. Happy to be a panelist today and provide some good, valuable information to everybody. So I'm just going to go into CDPHP's best practice for billing claims. I'm going to try to read this quickly and probably verbatim because there's a lot of good information. So I do want to just kind of relay that on to everybody. So CDPHP currently accepts claims through the 837I format or the UB04 claim form. For paper claim submissions, you can submit those to our PO box address that's listed there, to Albany, New York, etc. Claims should be billed to CDPHP within 120 days of the date of service. So that is our timely filing requirement. We do expect all providers to submit within that 120-day window. You can also check the status of your claims via our secure online provider interface at www.cdphp.com. We also call that our secure provider portal. Or you can contact our provider service contact center. I also manage the provider services contact center at the 800 number listed right there. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more into how to handle denials. So submit claim appeals within 6 months of the claim adjudication date by contacting our provider service department by either telephone or in writing, and then provide any additional supporting information. And if in writing, please include a completed provider review form. So the provider review form is our standard templated form that should accompany any appeal. So when you're submitting that information in writing, you can attach to our provider review form. That form is also available on our secure portal where you can also submit electronically, which is nice.
Thank you. Christopher, we might have lost you for a second.
Yeah, there might have been, looks like an internet connection issue.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, did I lose you? Yeah, I'm back.
Now you're back. Yes.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
So I was just indicating you can submit the provider review form to our physical address at the address listed right there. Or if you have any questions, you can also contact the provider service department. We're open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at that 800 number listed below. We also have a local number. So if you're a local provider, you can contact us at 518-641-3500 also. So if the original determination is upheld or additional information is needed on your appeal, CDPHP will provide a written response to claims appeals to the attention of the individual who submitted the appeal. So bottom line, you will get a acknowledgement to your appeal in writing if there's additional information that's needed. And then we'll expect you to obviously resubmit that information with the provider review form again. If a claim appeal results in a reversal of the denied claim, the adjustment will be reflected on the weekly explanation of payment, as we call it, the EOP. If the claim is re-denied for another reason, this information will be reflected on the EOP as well. Next slide, please. So these are resources that are available online at our public site, which is www.cdphp.com. And then also you can go about getting access to our provider portal by enrolling in the portal off cdphp.com by selecting the provider tab. So you can get member eligibility of all our members that are enrolled with CDPHP. You can get their applicable benefit information, which is nice. Claim submission, so you can check your claim status to see if your claims were received by the plan. And then also, like I mentioned previously, you can submit that provider review form electronically. You do not have to fill it out and submit it via paper process through the good old snail mail. And then also, so you can submit that online, and then also, like I said, you can submit your appeals directly through the portal. You can also check prior authorization status. So, obviously you can look our policies up and procedures and see if a service requires authorization. I will say as a health plan, we've eliminated a lot of prior authorization over the last 2 years, which is nice. I know our providers have been very appreciative of all the lessening of authorization requirements around benefits. You also can check our guidelines, like I mentioned, with our policies and procedures. All our general forms are also available on our public site. Any type of reports or notifications are also available on our portal. And then we have like a general provider account tools with a bunch of different information available as well. So next slide, please. And these are just some important links. So cdphp.com is our public site. There's also a link to off the public site to our POAM. That's an acronym for the Provider Office Administrative Manual. That goes into a lot of great detail just with policies and procedures with regards to CDPHP. It's got multiple sections. The sections are outlined very nicely in terms of the content. We definitely refer any providers that join our network, we refer them to that Office Administrative Manual right away, just to get a little bit more acclimated with the plan. So definitely a great resource. And then also there's a link to our provider review form, which is that standard form for submitting your appeals to the plan. So, and next slide. And just really quickly, I won't go into detail, but this is just some common numbers how to contact our plan. So the call center is your #1 resource. Just gives you some information in terms of what type of questions you can ask to our contact center. Provider relations is also another department that's available. Those are dedicated provider relations specialists that are able to answer your questions via that phone number and that email distribution. And then we also have a behavioral health access center that's also available with any questions for our members related to behavioral health services. And they're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Next slide.
Okay. Thank you, Christopher. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brian from Excellus.
Thank you. And thank you for having me be on this panel. My name is Brian Fidelis. I'm a behavioral health PR representative for Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield. I cover our Utica, Syracuse, and Southern Tier regions. So if you can visualize a New York State map, I cover our regions from Plattsburgh all the way down to Binghamton, straight up to Syracuse. I outstretch to Elmira a little bit, and then straight up to the Canadian border. So I do cover a very large area for Excellus, but I am happy to assist you with any questions or concerns that you have. So again, welcome to the Excellus portion of the presentation. Next slide, please. This first slide is just a quick overview with our health plan and some helpful tools that are available through the Excellus website. If you currently do not have access to the Excellus website, you'll see the inserted picture in this slide provides you with the opportunity to register on the Excellus website to have this access, where you have the opportunity to use the following tools, where you can check eligibility and benefits for any BCBS member, both on the Excellus side as well as nationwide Blue Cross Blue Shield members. Also, you can check claim status. There is a claim adjustment form, as well as a pre-authorization listing for services that do require prior auth. Also, you have the participating provider manual, which is also located on the website. This is a 265-page document. We don't recommend that you print it out because obviously we don't want to kill any trees at this point in time, but it is in a PDF format, so you can search through specifics based on a keyword or section, how it's broken down on the website. So it's really very convenient for you. Additionally, just want to review with you, we do accept claims via electronic submission as well as paper claims. We also provide provider trainings. We have a listing on the Excellus website for any trainings that you may be interested in. They are provided with our behavioral health provider training team, and they typically run about an hour and a half long, sometimes a little bit longer, but just depends on questions and answers that do occur during the trainings. And currently they are providing these trainings via WebEx, so very convenient for anybody to join. Then we also have our case management team, which does help facilitate coordination of services with our members, with their interdisciplinary teams. We have contact information on our website to reach out to our case management team in case that is needed. Next slide. Then this slide here is just a listing of our behavioral health provider relations team. We have our supervisor, Jennifer DeMars, who is located in our Syracuse office with her contact information, both phone number and email address. Also, you have my colleagues, Michelle Scott and Sarah Newsom, who both are located in our Rochester region. And as you can see on the slide here, these are their specific areas where they are the experts in, as well as the coverage area, including their phone number and email address. And just so you know, I wasn't lying to you, there's my contact information with all the coverage area that I do do currently cover for Excellus. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any one of us. And then lastly is just our contact information with specific areas of need. Really just take a look at this. This listing is also on the MCTAC or the MCTAC website for your convenience as well. So feel free to reach out to us with any questions or concerns based on the area where you are in need of those questions. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And now I am going to turn it over to Casey from Fidelis.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We're very excited to be here this afternoon. We're just going to go over a few slides to let you know what Fidelis is about. The next slide, please. This is our provider resource area. We do have our provider manual, which is located at the fideliscare.org website. Under that manual, we called out a few sections that we feel are important. Section 12, claim submission. We do have our billing guidelines in there as well. Section 21 is the behavioral health and designated to that field area. So that is going to be an important part to really review and get to know. We also have our HARP plan and then our Medicaid Children's Expanded Benefits area. Under the portal, we also have our authorization guidelines and requirements. These are updated on a monthly basis, so it's important to check those out each month to see if there's been any changes to the authorization requirements. And we also have our provider tip sheets that can be found on this website as well. Go ahead and click forward. We have Provider Access Online, which is our secured portal. It does require for sign up a username and password. When you become a PAR provider with Fidelis, this is something that we do go over and encourage all providers to have access to. The information that you can find out on this website is your member eligibility along with their benefits, your claim status for any payment and denials reasons, and we'll also show you your check cash date. So if you're not seeing a payment in your files, you can see if there has been a check submitted and if that check was cashed. At that time, if you can call into our customer service area or your provider relations representative. We also have our provider user guide that goes over the online authorizations and checking those authorizations online as available. Go ahead and click forward. We'd like to do electronic claim submissions. This is very important. It's the best way to get your claims to us for faster processing and reimbursement in a much timely manner. As long as the claims come through in a clean fashion the first time through. There is a reduction or elimination of the number of claim denials and claims not being received through that snail mail process. As we know, it's very slow these days. Also, your proof of timely submission will come through an electronic submission form to the group. So you'll have faster notification if your files have been accepted or rejected to work those immediately. We do use the Clearinghouse of Ability. That is our preferred clearinghouse. And that information is all on file underneath the electronic submission files on our website. They can also be sent through Ability, which is a free clearinghouse that we also use, and their information is also found on fideliscare.com or .org, I'm sorry. If you have another clearinghouse that you're looking to work with, you can contact your clearinghouse and they can submit a file or request to Fidelis Care in order to set that up for you. Go ahead and click forward. This slide goes over our basic BH contact information. So we do have a behavioral health queue, which is indicated there on the first line, along with our email address that you can submit any questions or requests to for authorization. We also have a designated HARP queue. And then we have our children's Medicaid queue, just with the children's programs. Below are the number, the phone number and the extensions for the various programs in our company.
Okay, thank you, Casey. And now I will turn it over to Heidi from United.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Heidi Hopkins, and I'm the New York Network Liaison at United. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our plan today. Next slide, please. All right, so first of all, we're going to talk about claim submission. An important number to remember is our payer ID. listed up there. But if you can't submit electronically, you can always submit via paper. The address is listed below. It's our P.O. Box in Salt Lake City. And make sure you fill out all the required forms and send that on in. Next slide, please. You always want to make sure you're submitting a clean claim. You want to make sure you have, your agency or facility information, all of the member information that's required, their name, their Medicaid ID and date of birth, your provider, your TIN, your NPI, your taxonomy code. You want to make sure you have those ICD-10 codes on there, as well as your correct value codes, revenue codes, CPT, HCPCS, and dates of service. Next slide, please. Here's a few quick reminders that you'll want to make sure you do before submitting those claims. You're going to want to make sure you verify that member eligibility prior to even rendering that service. Make sure you're obtaining that prior authorization for the services that do require it. Make sure that you're putting in your value code on your claim form. And there is only one rate code allowed per claim. And again, reiterating, making sure that, CPT modifiers and whatnot are on there. That can cause errors if numbers are missing. And, make sure to, when you get your provider remittance advice, make sure you're reviewing it early to identify any issues. Next slide, please. This is just a slide about our appeals process. You would submit your appeals via mail. The address is listed below, but you're going to want to do that within 60 days of the provider remittance advice. And on each of the provider remittance advice, it does list out the appeals process and where it should be submitted to. So you will have that listed out for you should you need it. Next slide. This next slide talks about authorizations and notifications a little bit. We do have an online system, which is the prior authorization and notifications, also referred to as PAN. This system is an easy way to submit your authorizations online versus calling the phone number. It's much quicker. And it's very user-friendly. We do also offer a training on it. So if you have not used this yet, please feel free to reach out, and we do have a trainer that does train this whenever anyone needs it. But you can also, if you prefer, you can use the telephone authorization by calling the number that's listed right there. And you'll need to enter your tax ID, select the care notifications and prior authorizations. You'll have to have the UHC member ID in order to do this, along with their date of birth, and then you'd need to select mental health. Next slide, please. This slide has a few of our websites that are really important and are used quite a bit. The uhcprovider.com, that website is used to check that member eligibility. Prior to seeing those members, you can check on your claim status, your payments, also your claims reconsideration. You can enter information via EDI, and there's a few other tools and resources on there as well. Provider Express is probably our most used site. It has a lot of information out there. You can find our provider manuals, our network manuals rather, for all of New York State. You can find information in regards to the children under 21 as well as the adult information. There's also a link out there that does have that PAN information out there. So there's a little training on there, a little how-to. Should you choose to just review it yourself. But there's a lot of information that can be found on Provider Express. There's also the uhccommunityplan.com. This one here is another portal that you would need a login for. And then finally, Live and Work Well. This is our provider search site. So, a lot of times members do use that when they're searching for an in-network provider. Next slide, please. And finally, this is our contact information for your locations. We do have Mossad Rana, Christine Gazinski, as well as Karen Moberg, who are network managers within the areas that you guys are from. And you can always reach out to me too. My contact information is there. And then any general inquiries can be sent to that New York Network Management mailbox listed below. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. And now I am going to turn it over to Boris from MCTAC, who will be our moderator for the question section of our panel today.
Excellent. Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you all the panelists for that great presentation and overview of your plans. I do want to, again, just a couple of things just to remind in case you joined us a little late. So one is just want to mention again that we are recording this, and the slides and the presentation will be available. We are doing 3 different regions. This is our first region that we're talking to and with the plans, and so as soon as we finish all 3 regions, we will make sure that the recording and the presentation will be available. Also want to remind folks to please feel free to chat in your questions throughout this presentation as we kind of really turn our attention to the Q&A portion and the discussion, and really put this presentation together to give you an opportunity to ask your questions to our panelists. So please feel free to do that. I also just want to kind of listening to what Caitlin outlined and all of our panelists, just want to say there's really a lot of resources out there, not just for MCTAC, but clearly each plan has an extensive resources available. And I would also just want to echo and reinforce, I think everybody said this, but the opportunity to sign up for the portals or websites or trainings that each plan offers, I strongly recommend that providers take advantage of it, because it does have a lot of capability and information, and I think sometimes could answer questions that you have. But also it's great to get all those contexts, because one of the questions we always get in MCTAC is, who do I call? And who do I talk to? Or who do I email? And so hopefully this helps, in addition to the matrix that we offer and everything else that each plan offers as well. So we're going to kick off with some of the common questions that we kind of seen in our Q&A portion. We will then turn to some of the questions we got from folks. We did ask folks to submit questions ahead of time, and I just want to say thank you to those who have submitted those questions. So we'll want to make sure we address those as well. And since we still have an hour left, we'll have definitely plenty of time to get to the other questions. So let's start with the first question. And the first one we have, what is the most common denial reason you are seeing, and how can this be addressed? So let's start with Casey from Fidelis.
I guess. So the most common denial reasons that we see here at Fidelis are on the initial claims. For our initial claims, they must be received within 90 days from the date of service in order to be considered timely by Fidelis. Another thing that we see is on our corrected claims. So once a claim is processed and you receive that on a remittance advice, you would have 60 days from the date of that remittance advice to submit a corrected claim to us, either electronically or via paper to the address outlined in our provider manual. As for the Edf Objections, anybody that's submitting electronically, which is the preferred method, you should be receiving an acceptance or a rejection report within a few days of submitting your file over to us. Once that rejection notice is received, just taking those proper steps to identify why the file has rejected, and if there is further information needed on our behalf, you can contact myself or your local relations rep to help you through that and fixing the errors on your files. We will work with you as best we can and work with the clearinghouse to get those files on over to us. Other denials that we see are provider billing errors. Commonly, the invalid rate and procedure code combo is something that we see, or the rate code is inconsistent with the number of units. So just a reminder to use those tools and those billing tip guidelines to make sure that the rate codes and the number of units and the procedure codes all match up for the service that you are providing.
Excellent. Thank you. Christopher?
Yes, thank you, Boris. So our common denials that we see are definitely member eligibility is one of the top ones. So just please make sure you're checking your information, obviously, not just going off the member ID card, but also checking any online resources to ensure they have their eligibility as active with CDPHP. We see a lot of, like I said, on a week-to-week basis, a lot of eligibility denials. Also, our second common denial is also timely filing. I saw in the chat, I think there's been some questions about how long you have to submit. CDPHP, it's 120 days, not 90. So I just want to clarify that. It is 120 days as a network provider. So you do have that 4-month window to submit a claim to the plan. And then on the flip side, you have up to 6 months to appeal a denial. So you have that 6-month window to appeal anything that denied with the plan. And then also COB is another common denial, coordination of benefits, where we might get a claim where we might not be the secondary carrier or vice versa, the primary carrier. So it's also very important to coordinate benefits. I know our portal is a great resource where you can go and pull up the member's eligibility, and it'll actually indicate what their other insurance is if we have that on our file in our system. So great reference point, great resource, so you know that you're submitting that claim appropriately. If there is another primary carrier, it'll tell you that, and then you know, okay, oh, CDPHP is not primary. I need to submit it to that other primary carrier for processing, and then submit it to CDPHP as secondary. So those are our 3 common denials. Rate value code is another one. Just like Casey echoed with her plan, that is one that where we see a lot where the rate value combination isn't meeting the expectation from a billing standpoint. So those are our common denials for CDPHP.
Excellent. Thank you, Christopher. Brian, let's go to you.
Sure, great. So for Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, I just want to first start off by stating if you're having any claim denials, first thing that you want to do is either reach out to myself or one of our other provider relations representatives, or you can contact our customer care department, and you can contact them at 1-800-929-8889. And either one of us would be able to assist you further with your questions in regards to the claim denials. But as far as common claim denials, first off is typically the member eligibility. And this, just like my colleagues have stated, one of the things that you want to do is make sure you're checking eligibility and benefits right through the Excellus website. This information on the website is live, so especially this time of year where it's the changeover to a new year, and actually the changeover to a new month, being February now, it is very important that you check that eligibility and benefit, because it may change from month to month or for the changing of the new year. And please keep in mind, for any Blue Cross Blue Shield member, you can actually check the eligibility and benefits on the Excellus website, whether it's for Excellus members or nationwide Blue Cross Blue Shield policies. So that's first and foremost. The next part, the next common claim denial is for no authorization on file. This is important for specific services. If a service does require prior authorization, you're going to want to make sure that that prior auth has been attained or obtained prior to billing these services. We also do retro reviews for prior authorizations, just in case that wasn't obtained prior to the services being started. So again, you want to make sure that you contact our medical intake team. And again, you can go to the section of our website specifically for authorizations, and it'll walk you through the process. You can actually submit prior authorizations either by contacting our medical intake team or by using the new CAP service that we have through the Excellus website as well. Then one other common theme that we see for claim denials is for duplicating services. This typically means that there has been a claim submitted prior to for the same date, and it's just going to deny because that claim has already processed and paid out. Again, with any one of these denial reasons, feel free to reach out to myself or one of my other fellow provider relations representatives or our customer care department, and we would definitely be able to work with you to figure out what the issue is with the claim denial, and then we could figure out what next steps need to occur.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. And before we go to you, Heidi, I think Christopher, you wanted to make one more comment.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Boris. I just forgot to mention one of the unique things we do at CDPHP is if you we run weekly reporting to see the volume of denials. So if you unfortunately happen to hit that report, we will proactively reach out to you to let you know, and we'll work with you on a one-on-one basis. Our provider relations team will reach out to you to let you know, hey, Dr. Jones, you had 150 timely filing denials this week, and really try to see what the crux of the issue. It might be an electronic billing issue. A variety of different reasons. So the nice thing is that proactivity where we will reach out to work with you one-on-one. So just wanted to mention that really quickly. Thanks, Boris.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Heidi, let's go to you.
Sure. So I'm going to echo my colleagues here, and one of our top denials also is the eligibility. So it is very important, that you are definitely checking that prior to, having the service and submitting the claim to us. Our second denial that I would say that we're seeing is no authorization. So you're going to want to make sure that your authorization that you're getting is matching the services that you're providing. And also, if you're in process of being credentialed with us, you want to make sure you're getting an authorization so those claims will process. And then thirdly, we do see a lot of claim denials for CFTSS services where maybe the rate code wasn't billed with the proper service and the modifiers. That seems to be something we do see in common. I know a lot of those services are, the same CPT HCPC codes, but you really want to pay close attention to those rate codes and modifiers that you're putting on that claim, because that truly drives what that service is and what you're configured for. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all. So clearly a couple of themes that jumped out here, member eligibility, very important, right? One of the big things, timely filing has come up, I think, with folks. And I think this combination of codes, making sure not that you just use the right rate code or right CPT code, but it's in combination with other codes. And I think that sometimes providers miss. They focus on each one individually and say that code is correct, but in combination, as I think a number of you have mentioned, sometimes is not correct, right, in that area. So I appreciate everybody's feedback. So let's move to the next question we have. And Heidi, that was kind of a perfect segue, because the next one is really about notifications and authorizations. And and we actually got a number of questions, and I'll probably just combine it. Prior to this, as I said, we asked folks to submit questions ahead of this webinar around authorizations. And so if you guys can, talk a little bit about what's important to remember regarding notifications and authorizations, especially when authorizations are required, because not for all services that's required, clearly, and even a little bit about maybe some of the timing. I know we got a number of questions about timing. When should I submit? There's dates, there's visits. So anything you guys can touch on would be great. And maybe this time we'll start with Christopher from CDPHP.
Sure, thanks, Boris. So when it comes to authorizations, notifications, really, different services have different expectations when it comes to notification authorization. While with CDPHP, there's currently no outpatient behavioral health services that require a formal authorization. There are, however, expectations for submission of updated treatment plans for services like PROS, ACT, HCPCS, and CFTSS. So for information on whether a specific service requires a notification or authorization, the best direction I can give is to contact our Behavioral Health Access Center, and that number is locally at area code 518-641-3600. And one of our BH intake specialists can definitely validate whether or not their service just requires a simple notification of, like I said, treatment plan information, or if it actually does need a formal authorization. So that's the best direction I can give you on that front. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And Brian?
Yep, and just like Chris was saying, as far as Excellus goes, it really depends on the service that is being requested for providing services. Each service is unique in itself, where there are services that do require prior authorization, but then there's other services that we just need notification for, such as for like CFTSS services and HCBS services, We just need to be notified before these services begin. And that's simply just reaching out to our medical intake team, so we have some kind of information that the services are being started. In addition, with the services that do require prior authorization, again, we stress check the Excellus website. We have an updated listing for authorizations that are for services that do require prior authorization right on our website. And we periodically update them at least once every 6 months. So we want to make sure that everybody is up to date and up to par with things. Then if you do require prior authorization, it's again contacting our medical intake team, so then they could walk you through the process. Or you can also use our new CAPS system, which is filling out the prior authorization forms right through our website, and it goes directly to our medical intake team. And then once the authorization has been approved, you will receive a notification from Excellus in a relatively in a timely manner, I should say.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. And Casey?
Thank you. As for Fidelis, I'm going to mirror a lot of what the panelists have said here. It says go down to the service types that are being requested. So your PROS Act partial hospitalizations will require an authorization and treatment plans in place with concurrent review during the stay. As far as our CFTSS services, we did remove our prior authorization from those services for the children effective 4/1 of 2020. Oh my goodness, we're in 21 now, so 20. Right now, due to COVID, our HCBS services, of course, aren't requiring authorization at this time. They will resume once we get the go-ahead to put those authorization requirements back on for children's HCBS. As far as our adult plans, though, they do still require, so your HART members will still require authorization for those services. And you do so by contacting our behavioral health either the phone line or emailing in the information on the contact information provided earlier.
Excellent. Thank you, Casey. Heidi?
So again, I'm going to echo what my colleagues have said, because there are different services that do require authorization. Some require notification. There's different guidelines. A lot of this information can be found out on Provider Express. There is a New York Network manual out there. You can also reach out to one of our care managers, and I know that information is out on the MCTAC site. Also, one of the biggest things with these authorizations is really the thing that we see is like the date, making sure that first date is correct. Sometimes, there's that I'll give an example, that 3 visit assessment for HCBS services. And sometimes the authorization is put in for that 4th visit, which is really kind of the first real visit. So you want to make sure you start your authorization at the beginning of that. So just really making sure that authorization matches the actual service, the date and everything is very important for us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it. So just moving to the next question, and I think most of you, if not all of you, touched on it and actually, provided some information on the appeals process, but maybe we can spend another minute or two if you wanted to add, or just kind of remind folks about your plan's appeals process. And Casey, maybe we can start with you this time.
Thank you, Boris. So for appeals denials, what we would like is for you to attach any supporting documentation along with that claim appeal form, which is found in section 13A. And again, that should be sent within 60 days from the date of that remittance advice when you receive that denial. If you do not submit it within that time, it is considered Fidelis as a final determination, and it's not subject to arbitration or review. So we do encourage you all to look at those remittances as soon as you receive them and work your denials within that 60 days and have that information sent on over to us with the appropriate claim appeal form and any supporting documentation.
Excellent. Thank you. Next, let's go to Heidi.
Sure. Our process at United is very similar to Fidelis. It is 60 days as well, and the information will be printed out on your provider remittance advice. It gives you the address, as well as the slide did, of where to submit that information to, but it is basically the same process. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Christopher, let's go to you next.
Yep, thanks, Boris. So with CDPHP, it's definitely a little bit more of an extension. You have up to 6 months from that remittance advice to submit that appeal, and you would do so via the provider review form that I called out in the slide previously. So you could do that either via the paper form, attach any supporting documentation, or you could do that online via our secure portal. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And Brian?
Yep. For Excellus, Blue Cross Blue Shield, basically, if you have a denial and you want to appeal it, there's a couple of routes that you can take. One, you can contact our customer care department and request an appeal, and they will walk you through the process. Also, they could possibly pinpoint what the issue is with the claim being denied, why it is, and what next steps you could make. In addition, you can also contact myself or any one of the other behavioral health PR representatives, and we could do some diving into the claim denial and figure out what the issue is. As explained with the other panelists, sometimes denials occur because a authorization isn't matching up because of the dates of service are different than the prior authorization. And this is just one example of many, but that's something that we might be able to work with our medical intake team on and make those corrections correctly. Or if that prior authorization never got transferred into our system correctly, that also could be the issue. So when in doubt, just reach out to our customer care department or one of the behavioral health PR representatives, so then we could really dive deeper into what the issue is so we can help resolve it.
Excellent, thank you. So a couple of things before we move on to the next section of this conversation is clearly communication is key here, right? Making sure that when people have questions or concerns or anything that they reach out to the plans. And also there are clearly timelines that providers need to make sure they pay attention to: the timely claim submission, the timely appeals process, and making sure they follow the plan's timelines. So just wanted to highlight that as kind of a few of the key facts. So just moving us to the next stage of, these are the questions that we got, again, submitted by providers prior to this webinar. So just want to make sure we have an opportunity to address them, or at least address most of them. So we had one question specifically around documentation, meaning there was a question about if plans are looking for or want to see documentation such like an initial service plan, assessment, or even progress note, especially while maybe somebody's in a pre-admit or that first assessment phase, before actually they make payments. So is documentation required for you to make a payment? So anybody, please feel free to jump in here.
This is Casey with Fidelis. So with our pros, we do look at that pre-admit. That should be included in the authorization request. A lot of times providers leave off that pre-admit date, and we do include that under one authorization. It's not viewed as so. If you are, authorizing services, make sure you do include that pre-admit date inclusive to the entire authorization.
Got it. But you need the date, but not necessarily the entire assessment or some sort of or a progress note or anything like that, or do you?
Well, we'll take, yes, the progress note and the plan of care that we're looking to take place for the client at the time to come through for,
Gotcha.
to review and set that up.
Thank you. Others? In regards to the documentation requirement, go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, same for us here at United. So we would need that documentation in order to create that authorization and put that information in there in order for that claim to pay.
Got it. Thank you. Before we move on, Christopher or Brian, you guys want to jump in? Or
Boris, I just want to say, for Excellus, it would be basically the same protocol for that initial assessment. Most services don't require medical records, but if we do need a medical record, we will request that to to one of our providers, but most services don't require that.
And I'm going to defer to my colleague, Jeremy Boyce. Jeremy, can you answer that question for the panel, for the group?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. This is Jeremy from CDPHP. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So very similar answer to our other colleagues here. The only nuance is that, as Chris mentioned, CDPHP does not require authorization for PROS services. However, we absolutely welcome the submission of that initial service plan for members in that pre-admit status in PROS. It's definitely helpful clinical information for us to then move forward when we're reviewing those future individualized recovery plans or treatment plans, whatever your specific PROS program refers to those as. So yes, absolutely welcome submission of that as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. Another question that we got was actually related to out of network. So we have, and I think we also have it in the chat as well. You know, so if I'm an out of network provider and started to see one of your members, or one of the members would like to be seen by my organization, do I need a full-blown contract? Is there other processes or other ways that an organization can potentially operate as a, I'm going to say out of network, or or obtain a contract? So any thoughts on what a provider might be able to do?
Sure, I can take that. At United, we would offer a single case agreement. So you would reach out and get that single case agreement on file, and you would be able to see that member. We also have that same process if you're going through credentialing, so you're not quite contracted with us yet, you'd want to get that single case agreement as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Boris, this is Brian from Excellus. Very similarly, we do require a single case agreement if you're not a contracted provider with Excellus, or if you are in the process of being contracted or credentialed with Excellus. All you have to do is contact our medical intake team and request a medical or single case agreement, I should say. But if you are interested in becoming a contracted provider with Excellus, feel free to reach out to myself or one of my other colleagues on the provider relations team, and we could connect you with our behavioral health contracting department so we can get that started for you.
Excellent.
And this is Casey with Fidelis. I'm just mirroring the other panelists. We would also do a single case agreement with the authorization for an out-of-network provider. If you are a provider that's looking to join our network, we do have a link on our website, the non-secured portal, just the fideliscare.org, stating to join the provider network, and then somebody would reach out to you to discuss a contract, or you could reach out to myself or another provider relations representative.
Yep. And this is Jeremy from CDPHP. Very similar. The first step would really be to reach out to the Behavioral Health Access Center that we've talked about a few times. That's that 641-3600 number, 518 area code. And they can initiate the authorization for that out-of-network provider. They can then initiate the single case agreement, which can then get you connected with someone in our contracting team to initiate that discussion about, can we have you become a participating provider with CDPHP? So really the first step would be just to call that access center phone number.
Excellent, thank you. I think the important thing to highlight, and I know partially the question we got, and I know we still get this question, a provider needs to have some sort of an arrangement with the plan before they can submit a claim and pay, right? Because sometimes I know we get, I'm not going to say complaints, but a question like, I billed for something, got denied, and then we say, okay, so you're a contracted provider. No. Did you get a single case agreement? No. Did you ever contacted the plan? No, but I did bill them. And I'm not even sure how they billed you, because I know sometimes that's even difficult electronically or otherwise. I guess maybe it was through paper. But I think, and unless I'm totally wrong, and maybe you guys have other ways, but, in my experience, you need to have some sort of be a single case agreement if you're out of network, or of course a full-blown contract to submit claims. And I just want to confirm that's still the fact, and that's still a requirement, right?
Boris, this is Brian from Excellus. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And the main reason behind this, and I'm sure everybody is aware of this, For Medicaid managed care or HARP members, they don't have a out-of-network benefit. So that's why a claim is going to deny if you don't have any kind of contract in place with the health plan or a single case agreement. So either being in-network provider, the claim should process without any problems because the benefits are there. But if you're an out-of-network provider, a single case agreement would help in that scenario, and your claim should process then as in-network based on that agreement.
Excellent. Thank you. Just checking in to make sure nothing has changed or anything like that on that. So I appreciate that. Let me I know we've been getting actually quite a few chats, so I actually appreciate that, and just wanted to again encourage folks to submit the chats. And I wanted to ask Yvette, I know from our team who've been monitoring, and see if there's any particular questions you want to kind of read.
Yeah, so yes, like you've mentioned, we've gotten a number of questions, and there are a couple of questions that came in around the handling of claims that have denied due to ineligibility since COVID. So I think some participants were under the understanding that participants would not be losing their eligibility during this time. And so I think they're just looking for some clarity around that.
So any thoughts around kind of, is there a different process since COVID, like I guess since last March, in regards to denial, especially around eligibility? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the plans follow the eligibility as given to you by New York State, right? And this is not your own per se eligibility.
Correct, Boris.
Right.
This is Brian from Excellus. I can take the lead with it. Basically, each member would be up for some kind of renewal based on their sign-up date for the Medicaid managed care or HARP policy. So those rules, to my understanding, haven't changed. Typically, the renewal process starts about 60 or 90 days from the date that they would term from the policy. They would have to go through that renewal process, and as long as they maintain their coverage with that health plan, it should continue following the renewal. However, if they choose to switch health plans, that could possibly happen, and then they would have a new health plan subscriber ID at that point in time.
Got it. Thank you. And others, I assume, similar experience.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yvette, any other questions that you want to raise that have come in?
Yeah, just there's some questions. I got a number of questions just around, I think, for participants to have a better understanding about the dates as it relates to gaps between, the date on the form and when services were actually authorized. So the question is really like, how do payers handle those instances where the dates and units don't really match with what's, with the authorization, and how flexible are payers handling these types of exceptions when the discrepancy is not the fault of the provider? So I think, again, I think that goes to that, date of services versus authorization.
Right, I can take that. So the data on the form, it must reflect that first date the member is seen. You want to make sure if you need to get that updated somehow, you can call in and get that changed in the authorization, but you want to make sure that it shows the first date that the member was seen. It's very important.
And yeah, go ahead, Christopher.
I was just going to say this one doesn't really apply with CDPHP because we don't require authorizations, just notifications. So that scenario should never rear its ugly head in terms of getting a denial where the dates don't match because we don't require authorization. So just want to mention that.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying. But yeah, I think with authorizations, I think, just echoing again, Heidi, when it is required, it's important that the dates and the number of visits, because the other piece that folks sometimes forget, that, you know, you have a date range, but you also have number of units or visits that usually come along with that. And as a provider, you need to pay attention to both, because you might still be within the date range, but for whatever reason, maybe you needed to do a little bit more intensive work and the units, you know, you used up sooner than the date range. And I know sometimes providers just say, oh, I have another month. That is true, but you might not have enough visits. And so it's, I think, important to remind folks that, you know, the providers have to look at both range and visits.
Yep. And as for Fidelis, along with what Heidi's saying, if we see that the date range is there, but those number of units have exceeded, you know, getting in touch with our behavioral health unit as soon as we see that those units have been exceeded, and working out the next step to add additional units and making sure that everybody's covered.
And very similar with Excellus, you know, if something's not matching up correctly, or the authorization needs to be extended for some reason because additional dates and times need to be used or are being scheduled, again, contact our medical intake team and they will be happy to do a concurrent or retro review. So the prior auth would match the claim's dates of service.
Got it. Thank you. I also, we have a question here, and I know we get this question from time to time. You know, I know we talk in acronyms and things, but, you know, the question here is about CPT codes, right? So those procedure kind of codes, and the HCPCS codes, which is another version of those procedure codes. And I guess the question is, you know, when to use one versus another. I mean, my understanding is it's usually laid out by the state in the billing manuals that are provided both to the plans and to the providers. And the provider really needs to think about when, depending on the service and what they're providing, if it's the HCPCS code, right, versus the CPT code. And I just wanted to check in with folks and see if you have any additional thoughts or guidance, or, you know, in regards to kind of when to use what code.
Sure, I can take that one. You know, a lot of the coding can be found in both the billing manual, the children's billing manual, as well as the adult. The children's billing manual is great to provide you exactly what needs to be billed, but also out on the New York State OMH website, there is a it's a billing, it's a matrix, and there is some coding out there that'll show you which CPT or HCPCS code really goes with your rate code. It'd be very beneficial if you're not sure. You can go out there and look for that.
Got it. Thank you.
And Boris, I agree exactly with what Heidi's stating. You know, the billing guidelines that are located on the New York State websites are very helpful. Makes it a lot easier to make sure you have the right rate codes with the right CPT codes or HCPCS codes. Just depends on the service, and that's what a provider should really focus on when submitting the claims.
Great, thank you. I know in one of the I think overviews, there was a mention on one of the denials being kind of duplicative claim, right? So one of the, I know, I think especially with CFTSS we're noticing, but others where the denial is, this is a duplication or claim duplication. And so my experience has been that is really due to, you know, what I refer to, and of course in an electronic format it's a different version, but I refer to it as field 4, where you're kind of indicating to the plan if it's, you know, initial bill, if you're resubmitting an invoice, what kind of the status of it. And I know in my experience that sometimes the problem is the providers sometimes rebill things, but don't necessarily tell you guys it's a rebill, right? But that's a kind of, and when your system gets it, it shows up as a quote unquote initial submission. And of course you say, no, you already did an initial submission. So I don't know, you know, kind of that duplicative claim denial that pops up from time to time. If you guys one, have that experience, I think one of you mentioned that, and two is, again, any suggestions or thoughts in regards to what providers could do if they're seeing a lot of them, or what it might indicate. So any thoughts on that?
Of course, this is Casey. I can take that one. I think hit right up point when it's a corrected claim or a resubmission of a processed claim already. and you're changing something on that claim, to make sure you are changing that field 4 to a 7 at the end, so we know that this is a corrected claim of some sort to an initial claim that was already received. If the providers are seeing an influx in those denials, that's when they should either contact the provider service, customer service area, or myself or their local provider rep to discuss the issue.
Got it. Christopher, I think you were going to jump in.
No, I was just going to echo the same sentiments that Casey just provided. Our process is the same.
Okay.
Change it to a 7. If you still have questions, contact our contact center. We can walk them through it. So.
Yep.
And Boris, for Excellus, same thing. You know, they should really be changing the field 4 to a 7, the last number there. And if there's any further issues with the duplicate claims, especially if there's a large quantity of them, by all means, feel free to reach out to myself or one of my other fellow behavioral health PR representatives so we can do more research on it.
That's great. So yeah, I know the other, and hopefully providers don't do this as often and reach out to you. I know there a number of years ago, there was a practice of, you know, I submit the claim, I don't hear anything from a plan. And then, you know, 2 weeks later or 30 days later, whatever it might be, let me resubmit the whole thing again. And sometimes do 2 or 3 cycles. And of course, you get an influx of those duplicative claim. So clearly, you know, just there are timelines. I know you guys are under pressure to either pay or at least provide you know, that response in regards to denial or whatever it might be, and there are specific timelines I know that all plans have to follow by New York State, you know, law versus electronic and paper. So sometimes I think, you know, just making sure that folks are not resubmitting claims before that timeline expires, right? I think you all, right, probably, I hope you're on board with all those timelines, because since it's a New York State requirement. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, but
Yeah.
you know,
So
Yeah.
prompt pay law, New York State prompt pay law.
exactly. Yeah.
In Boris, typically, you know, for an electronics submission, it's roughly 24 to 48 hours that claim's going to make it into our system. For a paper claim, you're talking about, you know, a 2 to 3 week turnaround time. Just depends on how quickly the mail gets to our vendor. You know, so as long as the claims are clean claims, they're going to make it into the system either way. So then they should have that quick turnaround.
Got it. Thank you.
And I just want to mirror off what Brian and everybody has said here. Utilizing those secured portals for your claim status check is important. So instead of keep resubmitting every 30 days, you know, check that portal and see if it's out there. Maybe, you know, you missed the denial and a remittance somewhere. Just to check and see where the status of that claim is.
Got it. Thank you. Yvette, just want to turn back to you to see if anything else has come up that you want to mention.
So yeah, there have been a few questions. I've gotten a number of questions just around the timely filing rules. I know you guys spent some time on that, but if you can just clarify, is there some participants who thought those rules were suspended during the COVID emergency? So maybe if folks can just review that quickly.
Yeah, I can speak to CDPHP's policy. So it is 120 days, but due to the pandemic, we are allowing a provider to submit up to basically 12 months as an unusual occurrence, so 12 months from the denial date. We treat those as exception requests. We understand going through a pandemic, provider offices furloughing employees, obviously not having the staffing to submit claims. A variety of different reasons have come into play over the last year. So we obviously are provider centric, so we want to work with our providers to ensure we get those claims and we process those still. So even though it is 120-day timely filing for CDPHP, we haven't extended that. However, we haven't allowed it as an unusual occurrence. So as long as the provider can validate what occurred in their practice that caused the delay, we will treat it as an exception, and those come to me for approval. And you know, I have not denied one yet. So, so with that being said, we are looking to work with our provider network to get those claims approved due to the circumstances.
So Christopher, just wanted to highlight something, because I think, you know, you just made an important point in regards to back to communication. And I know people are probably tired of hearing me say this, you know, but I just want to highlight what you're saying. It's not an automatic that I can bill you, you know, 9 months later and get paid, right? It's more about, I know I'm not going to be able to make the 120 days. I still have to reach out to CDPHP, explain my situation. Sounds like, you know, you guys are pretty flexible and understanding, but it's not an automatic thing, right? It's not like I got a year now to bill you, right?
Correct. Yeah, good clarification, Boris. You still have to basically ask for the exception. So, and you know, with the new, New York State regulation around unusual occurrences allows that 12 months. So as a plan, we're very flexible, and obviously we work around that regulation. So yes, you still have to ask for it. You can't just submit a claim after 120 days to CDPHP and expect, due to the pandemic, it's going to get paid. So once you get that denial, that's where you would reach out to the Provider Service Contact Center at CDPHP, or either the provider relations specialist, and we can initiate that occurrence to be reviewed by management. So, yep. Yeah,
Excellent, thank you. Yep. What others? Similar process, or go ahead, Heidi.
So for United, we didn't suspend any of the, the timely filing requirements. However, if you do have a circumstance where you were not able to, bill your claims timely, you would need to reach out to your network manager, who is on the slides listed here, and just talk them through, what kind of happened and why you were unable to submit your claims timely.
Great, thank you.
Boris, for Excellus, very similar, it's typically 120 days, but due to COVID, we did extend it to 180 days. So there is a six-month time frame. However, if you're still struggling to submit claims in a timely manner, again, reaching out to your provider relations representative and explaining to them, communicating with us what's going on. I'll give you an example. I had a provider reach out to me a couple months ago. They just happened to switch their vendor back in October, and they're still trying to configure everything correctly. They reached out to myself, and I was like, absolutely, don't worry about it. It's 120 days, but if you get past that, by all means, let me know, so then we can work together and correct that issue as quickly as possible. So, so definitely, communication is key when timely filing is getting close or over it.
Got it. All right, thank you. And Casey?
And for Fidelis, we do have the 90 days from the date of service to submit the claims timely. Similar to the other panelists here, we have a reconsideration project that can be done that also has to be requested with the story behind it, telling us what happened, and that does go up through our management, up through senior leadership for approval. So that would come through your local PR or myself to let us know what's going on. We'll gather all the documentation and the claims for that period, and then work through our management team to submit that.
Excellent. Thank you. Yvette, I'm going to look through some of the other questions, but in the meantime, do you have more to share?
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up, because there was a question here about the ability to submit reconsiderations and appeals electronically. So providers is asking if they're able to do that electronically.
So appeals electronically, is that, I think the question sounds like?
Yep, reconsiderations, and they've asked for appeals too, but reconsiderations electronically.
Right. So I think some folks talked about that electronic capability, right? In regards to appeal claims and reconsider.
Right. So for Fidelis, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Case. Go ahead. You beat me. Go ahead.
So for Fidelis, we do require that it comes through the mailbox. So that's not an electronic availability right now, as well as corrected claims. They either come through electronically through your clearinghouse or through the mail.
Got it. Go ahead, Christopher.
Yeah, with CDPHP, you can submit appeals or reconsiderations electronically through our secure portal with the provider review form, or you can submit it as a corrected claim, as a new claim, so to speak. Just obviously, letting everybody know you should change that from a 4 to a 7, just to make sure we know it's not a duplicate, a new claim submission, that you're actually submitting a new claim with updated information. So.
Got it.
Boris, for Excellus, same thing. If they wanted to submit a corrected claim electronically, all they'd have to do is change the type of bill, section 4 to a 7 with the correct information. I believe they would have to include the original claim ID number when they do submit it, but that's in field 64 on the UB04 form. And again, this is just to make sure we're correcting the proper claim. We do have an appeals form on our website as well. They can also do it that way and submit it via mail or through email. There's an email address at the bottom of the form as well. So there's a couple different options there, but with the same result.
Got it. Heidi?
Yeah, and for United, your corrected claim can be submitted electronically. However, for your appeals, you would need to mail that in.
Got it. Thank you for that information. I know we also have a question, and I know it generally comes in regards to, folks mentioning, I have a random denial. It seems like it's random. I got a whole bunch of things paid, some things got denied, I can't figure out. There is a denial reason code, but I can't figure it out. Or, for these 3 visits I got paid, but these 3 visits I didn't, but I'm pretty sure I submitted them exactly the same way. And so when things of that nature happens, in regards to providers really are either confused or feel like there's just these random denials occurring, because that's one of the things that you hear from providers, what would you guys suggest in regards to trying to resolve that, especially if they're not really sure why they're getting some denied and some paid?
For Fidelis, they could contact myself or their local PR rep. I handle the Northern Country, part of Syracuse, Southern Tier, Hudson Valley, and the Capital District. So I push them with the local reps for that area. So either your local PR rep or myself to discuss those issues and hopefully work through them, and we can educate and provide assistance as to what's needed to fix that.
Got it.
And I would say for United, that would be exactly the same. You'd want to reach out to your rep and explain what's going on.
Same thing for Excellus.
Same for CDPHP as well.
Yeah, I think, I think to me, one of the other things that I add to providers is, as soon as you see that, you should reach out and don't wait till 3 months later, 6 months later, where there's 1,000 of those claims that you're not sure what's going on, versus maybe it was 5 or 10 or 20, because there might be some issue, either on your end or maybe even on the plan's end, but it's good to kind of try to address them sooner rather than, I think, I don't understand why 1,000 of my claims in the last 6 months got denied. Conversation. So I think that's an important aspect here. I know we have 10 minutes left. So Brian, were you going to say something, or?
Nope. I was just going to agree with what you just said. The sooner the better when you see a claim issue.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'll look for additional chat questions. Also from you, I know you guys see some of the chat questions that came in. I don't know if there's any particular ones you wanted to jump into. If not, I'm also going to ask Yvette to see if others have come in. I just want to make sure we're getting to people's questions. Yep.
Yeah, so I had a couple questions just come in around credentialing. And so the question is, are there any tips to really streamline the credentialing process? It seems to take a long time. So any tips that you can offer relative to that?
From Excellus, basically the credentialing process is a lengthy one, and the easiest way to streamline it, communicate through us via email. We can accept contracts, to get things started via email. We do need a solid hard copy sent to our office, our behavioral health contracting team. But to get things rolling, you can always email us the contract. You can also reach out to our provider relations team, so we can walk you through the process, connect you with our contracting team, and so we can get the ball rolling for you. And we'll do our best to push it forward as quickly as possible. But that's the best route to take for Excellus.
I would say
for CDPHP.
Sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead, Heidi. Yep.
Okay, thanks. I would say for United, the best thing you can do is, when you're in contact with a contractor and they're giving you the documentation and letting you know what's required, the best thing you can do is get all of that submitted as fast as you can get it completed, and they can get your application and your contract through to credentialing, nothing can be submitted until they have all of the documentation. So it's important to get it to them.
Got it. Christopher?
Yeah, so it's CDPHP, our credentialing process. I'm happy to say in the last year, it's a completely electronic process. So all you need to do is go to our public site, cdphp.com, and you can submit the application right online. As a health plan, we're required to turn that application around in 60 days. I know I just reached out to the credentialing manager. Right now, they're averaging about 30 days for turnaround time. So we have a very nice turnaround time. However, if you do see your application, there are certain times of year where we do get an influx of applications. Just like a lot of the panelists indicated, reach out to your provider relations specialist or the the provider service contact center and see if it can be expedited. I know we do try to expedite where we can. So, but really the electronic process is nice. We send out contracts electronically. There's a DocuSign option where your provider can actually e-sign it. So there's no paper being passed along, which is nice. So definitely an upgrade in our process. And I know our providers are very happy with that. So just wanted to pass that along.
Excellent, thank you. Casey, and yeah.
And as far as Fidelis, kind of mirroring what Heidi had mentioned, once that contract comes out to you, making sure all your documentation, all your licensures and operating certificates are there and available. Because once they have that information back and everything's in-house, they do send that on over for processing, which moves to our credentialing department. I do also want to say, if you're already a contracted provider, such as an Oasis facility, and you're updating new providers or removing providers from your directory, we have a roster that can be submitted quarterly for you to submit those changes to us.
Excellent. Yeah, and thank you for all this information on credentialing, because sometimes it does get forgotten a little bit. And so thank you for that question. And just also wanted to add, not only, like you said, the list, I think sometimes providers also forget maybe or don't think about it, that if they're opening a new location or a new site, I don't know how many new sites are being opened during COVID, but in a normal circumstance, if you are closing or opening, that they need to communicate even as a contracted fully credentialed providers, because I know sometimes one of the denials we see, not necessarily top 3, but sometimes top 10 or top 5, is that this site is not credentialed, or there's a particular denial in it, and people get confused and they're like, I don't understand, I've been with United for 5 years. What do you mean I'm not credentialed? Well, it's not that you're not credentialed as an organization, but you open a new clinic or you open a new location and you forgot to mention that to United. There's this new location that exists. So I think again, important to make sure that gets added. I assume there's still some sort of, I'm going to say, credentialing process. I assume it's a little easier because you as an organization are credentialed, but I believe you still have to give you information, right? Location, hours, some basic stuff.
Yeah, Boris, just to add to that, you're absolutely right. It is a little bit quicker of a process to add a location. It really just depends on how quickly our system can be updated with that additional address to the provider file. Sometimes it takes around 30 days. Sometimes it takes maybe 35 days, but then other times it might take 20 days. So it really depends on how quickly that information gets to us with the appropriate documentation that we need, and then we could push it forward as quickly as possible.
So I think that the message is the sooner the better.
Exactly.
This way you don't have to worry if it's 20 days or 35 days, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Others similar kind of process or approach?
Yeah, for United, it would be the same thing as well. Make sure you get us that operating certificate for that new location and the information that's needed in order to get that added into our system.
Excellent.
Same thing for Fidelis.
All right. So I know we have only a couple of minutes left. I know there was a question about so the plans are still contracting. I'm pretty sure you guys are still contracting, as per this discussion, and not, turning people away. I know we had a question around that as well. So I just want to assure folks that if you're not a contracted provider, please feel free to reach out and start that process if you're interested in contracting with everybody. I do want to say thank you again for all of your participation and taking the time out to talk. And just want to, in the last couple of minutes or so we have left, if there's anything else that folks want to add before we conclude today's discussion.
Boris, from Excellus, I just wanted to say thank you for having us participate in this panel. This is a great opportunity for us to reach several of our in-network providers and hopefully potential out-of-network providers that will be looking to partner with us in the future.
Excellent. Thank you. And I know, Caitlin, you did mention that we're going to have those, the resources and the contacts are all going to be available when folks get there. You know, the slides are going to become available. So just wanted to make sure that folks know this. I know we had a number of questions as who do I call? And hopefully, as Caitlin shares the kind of the slide deck, you know, not only do we have the contact of the folks that participated here, but the general contact, and also, you know, the matrix is another tool. Please utilize. We work closely with all the plans to keep it as up to date as possible, because, you know, things do change. So just want to say thank you again to everybody, and thank you for attendees for participating in today's discussion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
Over.